Welcome to the Real Appreciation Podcast. I am David Clair-Bennett, and with me today is a Grammy-nominated composer known for his work in Nine Inch Nails, but also for creating the iconic scores in the Saw franchise as well as American Horror Story. And in honor of the upcoming 20th anniversary of the first Saw film, please welcome to the show, Charlie Clouser.
Hi, everyone.
How are you today, man?
So far, so good.
Good. Well, we are celebrating the upcoming 20th anniversary of the very first Saw movie. And in that film, we get one of cinema's most shocking reveals of a lifetime. And what adds to that iconic reveal is the score that plays in the background. And in case anyone who hasn't seen it yet, which it's been 20 years, come on, get your ass over there and go see that movie. I will say it blows everybody's minds. So, Charlie, I am curious to know, when you first crafted the infamous Hello Zepp theme for Saw that plays at the end of the films, did you ever imagine it would become one of the most recognizable sound pieces of horror?
At the time, I had no idea. I really just wanted to make something that was memorable and hooky, and also was completely out of character with the rest of the music in the movie, which was kind of murky and indistinct. And as the film goes on, the score kind of dissolves into chaos, and just before that Hello Zepp theme starts, it's sort of clanking metal and scraping sounds. And the idea was to really just have as big of a contrast as possible once that ending reveal montage started. So all the sounds are different from any sounds used earlier in the score. It's in a different key, and everything's kind of dry and upfront and sort of in your face, which hopefully was a contrast to the dark, murky feel of the rest of the score.
What was your mindset when creating that score in particular?
There is some thematic musical material, which, is sort of buried in that muck, but the chords that are used in some of the earlier cues are kind of derived from the stuff that appears later in Hello Zepp in a slightly different key, but it all tries to relate as a whole, although there's a lot of sort of sound designy moments where the music is barely even music. But it really I wanted it to feel like a descent into madness, as we kind of follow Danny Glover's character, Detective Tapp. He's getting more and more freaked out and kind of turning into a conspiracy theorist with his Post-it notes on the wall and thumbtacks with strings and all that, as well as the other characters who are also just getting more and more close to their wit's end. So I wanted it kind of starts off sort of calm and, hey, what's happening why are these guys in this room? And then it gets darker and heavier. And of course, there's some kind of brutal industrial moments, but like I said, it then just dissolves into utter mayhem before that whole ending sequence, which was on purpose wanted to feel like somebody switched on the lights in the theater and everything gets bright and forceful and really in your face.
You absolutely did your job. Very well done. And you've also worked with so many artists in different genres. What is the most unexpected collaboration request, if you've ever had one, that you've ever received?
There have been a few moments when I've thought, why did they think of me for this? One was this TV series I scored called Las Vegas, which was a fun show, a hour-long drama comedy show on NBC about, beautiful young people who work in a casino. And I thought, I'm not known for doing any music like Ocean's 11 kind of music. As it turned out, it was one of the most fun projects I ever worked on, and we did it for 6 years almost. And because it was a style of music that I didn't already know how to do, and so it wasn't just rinse and repeat doing the same thing that I've done 100 times before. And that became fun from a creative point of view, because it was the process of discovery and maybe some successes, musical successes here and there. I'd have to do kind of funky jams while, beautiful young people are walking in slow motion through a casino. And I'd sit down and think of what would be right for it and realize I don't know how to do funky stand-up bass, mildly jazzy jams. But in the process of doing it, it turned out to be super fun. And when I'm describing that time working on that show, I kind of describe it like it's sort of like riding mopeds on vacation. You know, picture yourself, you're in the Florida Keys somewhere, you've rented a moped, you're wearing day glow green flip-flops because you lost your real flip-flops, so you had to buy some at the gift shop. You've got those corny sunglasses with the like fluorescent orange sides that also you lost your real sunglasses, so you're wearing these cheap ones you got for $5. You've rented a moped and you're popping wheelies on some back street in the Florida Keys. And at the moment, you're having so much fun. You're hoping that nobody's filming it and going to post pictures of you looking like a dork trying to pop wheelies on a rented moped. But when you're actually doing it, it's great fun. So that was kind of what doing that show Las Vegas was like. It was out of character for me musically, but it was a whole lot of fun. Just it was good, clean fun musically, and I really enjoyed it, although it was totally not what I'm known for.
I think somebody was a closeted Saul fan. That's what I think happened, man.
It must be, yeah.
Since we're focusing on the upcoming 20th anniversary re-release of the original Saul film, do you have any surprising or exciting behind-the-scenes stories that even us diehard Saul fans like myself, might not know?
I was brought into the project on a Wednesday morning at 10 in the morning my lawyer called me up and said, take down this phone number, run down to this editing suite and watch this indie horror movie that some other clients of mine have somehow pulled together on a shoestring budget. They know about your work in Nine Inch Nails. They even have some industrial music like Ministry and Einstürzende and stuff like that in their temporary version of the score. And they don't want an orchestral conventional score for this horror movie. They want like some industrial music grit. And so at 10 in the morning, I took the phone call. By 11 in the morning, I was watching a rough cut of the movie. And by 1 in the afternoon, I was like shaking hands with James Wan saying, okay, let's do this thing. So it all came together very quickly. And at that moment, I was in the middle of producing a record by the band Helmet. And because Paige Hamilton, the leader of Helmet, and I had written some songs together. Helmet had played as an opener for Nine Inch Nails on a few shows, and we became friends and started writing together. And when the call came in to do Saw, I was literally halfway through recording the vocals for Paige's album. And fortunately, I had two music setups at my house, and the B setup in the little room was supposed to be just for doing auxiliary editing tasks and chopping vocals and editing drums and stuff. And fortunately, I was able to find a vocal coach who could help Paige get the most out of his performances, but could also run the studio. So I put those guys in the front room and said, carry on without me. I just need to take a minute to score this little film. And I went into the back room, into the little small rig, and did the whole Saw score in about 5 weeks, top to bottom. Since it was my first feature movie score, I didn't really know if the 5 weeks they were giving me was enough or too little or way more than I needed. Of course, any project like that is sort of like you can describe it as a gaseous state. It will expand to fill all the time that's allotted to it. So, of course, as with all of them, it's always, all pulling all-nighters on that last couple of weeks, frantically trying to meet the deadline and get everything finished to a level that I wanted. So it was many of the later movies, I had more time. I could use my main setup. I had more equipment, more sounds, more luxury. But that first one was done so quickly and on such a shoestring of both budget and time that it kind of has, when I listen back to all the music from all 10 of these freaking things, there's still some like charm and urgency about the score for the first one that I have to continually remind myself about and try to inject some of that into the scores as they move forward.
You absolutely created nostalgia, man, and I applaud you for that.
Thanks.
What is your birthday message to Billy the Puppet for turning 20 years old?
Billy, I hope we see you around for another 20 years at least.
Are there any Easter eggs in your Saw scores that only diehard fans may catch?
There are a lot of callbacks musically, little nuggets of melodies and stuff that are pulled from earlier films in the franchise. And every once in a while, some pieces of music which weren't all that important in the earlier movies take on a bigger role when they reappear later. There was this little quiet kind of murky, almost trip hoppy piece that accompanied Amanda in the first movie. And it was just a little snippet, a little tiny fragment, maybe 30, 40 seconds in the first movie. And then in later films, the various directors that have shuffled in and out would kind of fixate on that. And they say, let's turn that into the whole bed for this sequence where they're expanding on Amanda's character and her backstory and stuff. So there was a few moments where I would have to pull from the archives these pieces of music, which were done in a hurry and weren't very fleshed out and was just like an interesting little, a little atmospheric backdrop, and then had to turn it into something more consequential. And that seems to happen a lot in the Saw franchise because, of course, the filmmakers are constantly like doing flashbacks and jumping around in time and revealing more of the backstory that wasn't revealed in earlier films. So if I'd have known that it was going to turn into this global horror franchise juggernaut, maybe I would have paid more attention to these what I considered at the time to be kind of not throwaways, but just quick little filler pieces, not knowing that later they'd become so important.
Well, forgive me if I'm wrong, but I'm not kidding when I say I'm truly a diehard Saw fan. Whenever I was 6 years old, I had the DVD of Saw 2004 from Blockbuster, and it had some special edition features, and I believe one of them, it might have been another one of the Saws. Don't kill me in the comments, but no, I remember one of them had like a featurette, and I believe it was regarding you and how you came up with the signature sounds, and it was quite unique. I'd love for you to tell the audience what you would do.
There were a lot of weird instruments that were built by this metal sculptor and musician who sadly had passed away a couple years ago. His name was Chaz Smith, and he had built most of his life he was a metal fabricator and sculptor, and he knew how to weld and work with all these exotic alloys. And because of his work both in the defense industry and in the film industry, he would get these pieces of scrap metal that weren't the kind of thing you'd find in the metal aisle at Home Depot. Weird titanium and stainless steel alloy sheets, and he would make musical instruments from them. Mostly for his own use. And I became friends with him, and I thought, hey, I'm doing this movie that's called Saw. There's a big part of the plot involves metal, like the saw blade. This could be perfect. So I wanted to have some kind of connection between the source of the sounds that were used in the score and what we're seeing on the screen. And so that's why I was so anxious to involve Chaz and use some of his instruments. And I actually wound up with a couple of them. And coincidentally, I swear this isn't planned. One of them is sitting right here.
Ooh.
And it's this enormous metal sheet.
Wow.
Right? And it's a giant metal sheet, which is hanging from strings suspended in this stand, and there are piano strings stretched across it that when you pluck the strings or play them with a violin bow, which I happen to have, you get a lot of really spooky, scary sounds, which to me at the time sounded very evocative and they're scary, but they also had a metallic texture to them that sounded like what I was picturing on the screen. And you get sounds like this. And that kind of sounds like a Saw movie, right?
Right.
All by itself. So using sounds that come from sources that seem to relate to what the story is about and what we're seeing on the screen seemed to make sense to me at the time. And these sounds that this device makes have really become a big part of the sonic footprint of all of the scores from all 10 of the movies.
That is amazing. If you could score any movie or TV show, anything, nothing is off limits, what would it be?
Boy, that's a tough one.
Mhm.
You know, some of my favorite movies and favorite scores were the Sicario movies, even though they're more sort of thrillers or espionage type of things. I loved the level of tension that those movies, even though it was a fairly calm kind of presentation, there wasn't a ton of action and violence. But I really loved those films and loved the way in which they kind of just put you on edge throughout. And of course, the scores by Johan Johansson and Hildur were just amazing, and I always refer back to those as examples of how to do more with less, because they're very minimalist in terms of the amount of stuff going on musically, but super effective. And that's the type of thing I would definitely aspire to do someday.
All right, one of my last questions. How does it feel to be Grammy nominated?
It's kind of, I mean, it's funny because I never set out in anything, whether it was working on records or doing film scores or TV scores. It was never like a mission to hit the mark in terms of a Grammy nomination or anything like that. It was only to do things that I thought were interesting or fun. And the Grammy nominations were the back in the day, it was, for being involved in Rob Zombie records or White Zombie records and stuff that we were doing. That wasn't the kind of thing that gets Grammy nominated. That's what we thought at the time. We just wanted to do cool, funky, heavy sounding music. And when it becomes kind of recognized by the establishment, if your first reaction is to go, huh? Are they serious? Because it seems kind of out of character with the type of thing that usually is talked about in those circles. So it's certainly gratifying, but it was definitely unexpected.
As we wind down here, I want to be very respectful of your time, and I won't keep you much longer. But this podcast is all about gratitude as well as appreciation. And one of the most important things I do is every day when I wake up, before I go to bed, Charlie, I say 3 things that I'm grateful for. So what are 3 things that you are grateful for in your life right now?
I would say 3 things. Opportunities that have come to me from all different angles. Always grateful for an opportunity, and I always try to make the most and be respectful of the people that are kind enough to think of involving me in their projects. Always grateful for the support of my wife, who I've been with we've been married for almost 20 years and been together for almost 30.
Got to watch Saw together.
Exactly. And, she's a creative person. I try to support her in her work and her photography work. And she's been super supportive of all of my all-nighters that I've had to pull. And, I'm also grateful for the culture of learning that I was kind of brought up in. My parents allowed me to take piano lessons and drum lessons when I was a little kid. And if you can think of any worse fate than having a child who's learning to play the drums, that is probably, at the time I thought nothing of it, but now later in life I realized, wow, that must have been torture for them. So, and they were very supportive also in allowing me to go to a freaky liberal arts college where I could change my focus from I want to be an architect to I want to do music. And they were always very supportive of that. And although it was always a mystery to them how somebody could fashion a career out of such a weirdo creative pursuit, they didn't second guess me or doubt my path for a minute. And I'm definitely grateful for that sort of supportive attitude from a very young
That's
age.
amazing, man. I cannot thank you again for doing this. You know I'm a diehard Saw fan, as I said earlier. And I've been on this crazy journey to try and secure as many Saw-related guests that I possibly can ahead of the upcoming Saw 20th anniversary. I know we're not going to get Tobin Bell, but damn it, we're trying.
I just met him for the first time last year. Out of all these movies, I'd never been in the same room with him.
Really?
At a screening or something. And he was the kindest and most generous and thoughtful man, and very different from the character he portrays.
Yeah.
And I know that he is extremely grateful for, after a 50-year or more career as an actor, he doesn't begrudge the success of the Saw movies and being recognized on the street as the evil genius from the Saw movies. He loves it. And that's another kind of like that reinforces what you were talking about. He will take the success from whatever direction it comes. And I've seen him walking down the street and being stopped by a fans, and he will pose for pictures, and he will happily sign their album cover or their DVD or whatever. And so he's definitely got a heavy dose of gratitude for all the success of the Saw films, for sure.
Saw returns to theaters exclusively only on October 20th and 23rd. I know I will be there. Charlie, how will you be celebrating Saw's 20th anniversary?
I'm going to go and see it 3 or 4 times probably. And if they have any, custom swag like popcorn buckets or soda cups to commemorate the occasion, I'll definitely be getting an extra large of each.
What kind of Saw popcorn bucket do you want?
Whatever they, for Saw X, they did cups with a little Billy figurine on top, and little stuffed plushies of the pig doll and the Billy puppet. So
I have one of them, yeah.
any of that swag, I scoop it up, and it's cluttering up the shelf in the back room as we speak.
Fair enough. Hey, I'm David Clair-Bennett. He is Charlie Clouser. Make sure you like this and subscribe to the channel. It helps us grow more than you know. We're almost at 1 million total views. Thank you all for watching. We will be back next week with a brand new episode. Thank you again, Charlie, for your time. This was so much fun.
Of course. Thank you.